Hello and welcome to Cliff Reviews Art House. This time I'm reviewing the film Final Destination Bloodlines, directed by Lipovsky and Adam Stein. Across 6 films, Final Destination has remained remarkably consistent. Not in quality necessarily, but in structure, tone and purpose. It's a franchise that knows exactly what it is. A horror series built not around a villain, but around inevitability. The premise is gloriously simple. Someone has a premonition of a catastrophic accident, a plane crash, a highway pile-up, a bridge collapse, escapes it, and then one by one the survivors are killed in the order that they were supposed to die. You can't escape death, you can only delay it. What makes this series work, and what's worth celebrating, I think, is its absolute commitment to the formula. There's very little narrative crossover between the films. Characters rarely return. There's no grand mythology tying it all together, except perhaps one cryptic mortician named Bloodworth. More on him later. Instead, each film is a self-contained machine operating on a rigid narrative track. You're not watching for character arcs, you're watching for structure, and Final Destination delivers that structure like clockwork. Each of the films opens with a spectacular set piece, the full disaster in vivid operatic detail, and then time snaps back and the tension begins. We know what's coming, the survivors don't. That dissonance is delicious. From that point on, we're watching 2 things simultaneously. The characters trying to escape their fate, and the film itself toying with us, laying out one lethal misdirection after another. A coffee cup teeters, a nail sticks up slightly. The entire scene becomes charged with threat. Every object becomes a potential weapon. Sometimes they're red herrings and sometimes they're not. That's the fun. The set-piece disasters are really satisfying. Having been a teenager through the great disaster movies of the 1970s, I really enjoyed watching the disasters unfurl. And then once we know that the first time we see it is a premonition, it's so satisfying to see it play out in reality. Of course, the deaths of those that survive the disasters are the franchise's signature. They're often described as Rube Goldberg style, absurdly elaborate chain reactions where a series of seemingly mundane accidents leads to a gruesome, ironic end. It's almost comic in its creativity. I must admit I had to look up Rube Goldberg. He designed deliberately over-engineered machines to perform simple tasks like turning on a light via a swinging boot triggered by a falling marble. That's exactly how these deaths feel: elaborate, cruel, ridiculous, and weirdly satisfying. The killer here is never seen. There's no slasher in a mask, no ghost, no demonic force. Death itself is the monster, and it's invisible. That's one of the franchise's most brilliant decisions, I think. There's no way to reason with it, no mythology to defeat, no final confrontation. It's just a process, a logic, a law of nature. And because it's invisible, it makes us hyper-vigilant. We scan every frame, sensitized to every flickering light or creaking chair. The real suspense comes from the act of watching. And yet, for all its morbidity, Final Destination has always had a streak of dark humour. These are not grim films, they're playful. They know exactly what they're doing. The characters are often thinly drawn, the dialogue wooden, and that's part of the charm. These are B-movie constructions. Even at their weakest, arguably Final Destination 4, a 3D gimmick fest, they never lose their identity. And at their best, Final Destination 5, with its clever twist ending, they manage something genuinely surprising. Which brings us to Final Destination Bloodlines, and somehow I think this is probably the best one yet. Bloodlines delivers everything you want from a Final Destination films. The elaborate deaths, the escalating dread, the red herrings, the gallows humour, but it also evolves the formula in subtle and satisfying ways. This time the story isn't just about escaping death, it's about uncovering where the curse began, We go back in time, tracing the roots of the phenomenon to a 1960s tower collapse and the family line that it doomed. The idea that death's design can be inherited, passed down a bloodline, adds a depth to the series. That variation is a real risk, I think, because this is a formula that works so well. You tamper with it at your peril. In fact, Bloodlines is also the first film in the series to break the 90-minute mould. It runs closer to 110. And if I have one small criticism, it's that a scene or two in the middle feels like it lingers just a little too long. But in the end, I didn't really care, because what we get in return is something richer, something more ambitious. It gives us exactly what we want and something new. The film is beautifully structured, with a visceral opening disaster that doesn't hold back. The gore is brutal, sometimes wince-inducing, but it's never mean-spirited. There's a tonal balance here that few horror films manage. It's funny, but it never undercuts the tension. It's self-aware, but it never tips into parody. It knows what kind of film it is, and it enjoys being that film. There are nods throughout to the franchise's recurring motifs, things like radios playing ominous songs, electric fans, pricked fingers. These little echoes feel like signals to the fans, reminders that death has always left breadcrumbs. And there's even a moment early in the film, a stunning aerial shot of falling bodies that really evokes Hitchcock. The real joy, though, is what the film does to the viewer. I have a belief that a good artwork changes the way you see the world, even if it's just for a moment. Sometimes I come out of an art exhibition or a film and feel like I'm seeing everything differently. When I walked out of Bloodlines, I found myself looking at the world through the franchise's lens. Everything became a threat: a bottle balanced on a table, a hanging lamp, a cracked tile. This film isn't great art, it is a popcorn movie. But the fact that it changes your state of mind, even briefly, is something worth noting, I think. And then there's Bloodworth. Tony Todd returns as this character, and while his role is small, it's crucial. He's always been the franchise's one truly mythic figure, the man who knows what death is and why it can't be avoided. Bloodlines finally gives us a glimpse of his backstory, and it's quietly moving. In one of the film's final moments, he delivers a simple speech about how precious life is, how quickly it can be gone. And knowing that Todd himself died shortly after filming, the moment lands even harder. It's not just a line in a horror film, it's a farewell. If Final Destination is a franchise built on ritual, the repetition of structure, the inevitability of fate, then Bloodlines is the rare entry that both honours and deepens that ritual. It's smarter, sharper, and I think it's more emotionally grounded than it has any right to be. The fact that it still manages to be genuinely entertaining, funny, gory, tightly paced, is a testament to how well the formula can still work when it's handled with care. I don't know if they're going to make a 7th, but if they do, I'll definitely go and see it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.